Number 8. Brittany Wilson. On Christmas Eve in 2021, a 32-year-old woman from Missouri brutally killed her fiancé with a sword while she was high on meth. Brittany Wilson was pictured with a big smile on her face after being charged with the murder of 34-year-old Harrison Stephen Foster. On the night in question, Foster and Wilson were under the influence of meth, a drug known for its ability to cause users to act insane. On that same night, police received a call at around 11 p.m., prompting them to visit the couple's home in Cape Girardeau. When they arrived, they found Wilson outside covered in blood, and a sword was lying nearby in the front yard. Wilson had been the one to report the crime, claiming that she had killed Foster. The 32-year-old was arrested immediately, and when officers went inside the residence, they discovered Foster's lifeless body, riddled with fresh stab wounds. Wilson admitted to the police that she and her fiancé had taken meth earlier that day, and apparently, while under the influence of the mind-altering drug, she believed that Foster was harvesting body parts from innocent victims. Prior to the slaying of Foster, Wilson shared a meme on her Facebook page about sharing multi-dimensional experiences with others, suggesting that she might not have been in the right frame of mind before taking meth. Wilson, who has 2 children from a previous relationship, ultimately admitted to the crime and was held on a $2 million bond. She was charged with armed criminal action and first-degree murder as a result, but as of now, she is yet to be sentenced for her violent actions. Number 7. James Phelps and Timothy Norton. In July 2021, 2 men from Dallas County, Missouri, murdered 33-year-old Cassidy Rainwater. They dismembered her body and stored pieces of the woman in a freezer. Rainwater officially disappeared on July 25th, but her family didn't report her missing until a month later, in August of 2021. The case sparked widespread attention nationally, as the police tried desperately to find any leads to aid them in the search for Rainwater. In November of that same year, 2 suspects were charged with first-degree murder. The suspects, Timothy Norton and James Phelps, had previously been charged with kidnapping in September after the local police received a tip from the FBI. Sheriff Scott Rice confirmed that body parts were found in a freezer and that DNA analysis proved that they belonged to Rainwater. The rest of the woman's remains were found scattered nearby on a property belonging to the victim's grandfather, Bill Rainwater. Police first interviewed Norton on the disappearance of Rainwater on September 19, 2021. He initially denied responsibility for the crime, but several incriminating photos that were found on Phelps's phone led to their arrest. The images showed Rainwater being held in a cage. Phelps was sent to the Dallas County Jail, while investigators interviewed Norton a second time. And it was at this point that Norton confessed to restraining Rainwater months earlier in July. As a result, Norton was also booked into the local jail without bond. About 4 months after Rainwater's disappearance, the charges against the suspect were upgraded. The new charge was for the abandonment of a corpse, after the Dallas County Sheriff's Office confirmed through DNA tests that the remains found on Bill Rainwater's property did in fact belong to Cassidy. Based on court documents, investigators claim that Phelps asked Norton to help him kill Rainwater while she was staying at his home. Norton admitted to restraining the victim's legs while Phelps strangled her to death. Then the 2 men dismembered Rainwater's body in a bathtub before disposing of various body parts. In April 2023, Phelps entered an L-Fort plea, which means that he admits there is likely enough evidence to convict him of the crime. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole and probation. Norton showed more remorse for his involvement in Rainwater's death and admitted that he and Phelps killed the victim because they believed she stole from them. In an interview with KYTV TV, Norton said, "I deserve to die, and I am ready for that." In June of 2023, he was also sentenced to life behind bars after pleading guilty to first-degree murder. As part of his plea agreement, the charges of abandonment of a corpse and kidnapping were dropped. Number 6. Robert Peterson. In May of 2023, a 54-year-old man was arrested in Benton County for murdering his 57-year-old girlfriend, who he shot and bludgeoned to death. A news release from the Benton County Sheriff's Office confirmed that on May 19th at around 9 p.m., deputies responded to a residence on Del Vista Drive in Warsaw, Missouri. Two women had called the authorities after forcing their way into the home because their friend had not responded to any of their texts or calls in 3 days. The women discovered the lifeless body of their friend, Lori Finlay, concealed with trash bags and a blanket inside the residence, prompting them to call 911. Upon arriving at the home, the sheriff's office located the body, and detectives involved in the case described the scene to be horrific in nature. After an autopsy was completed, the medical examiner's office reported that Finlay had been shot several times in the neck and head, and she was also bludgeoned in the upper portion of her body. The residence where Finlay was found reportedly belonged to the victim's boyfriend, Robert Peterson. Benton County Sheriff Eric Knox spoke with KY3 TV and stated that Finlay and Peterson's relationship was still under investigation. He also said that Peterson had a long history of domestic violence. Peterson was arrested by deputies and was booked into the Benton County Jail on charges of first-degree and third-degree murder, abandonment of a corpse, and tampering with physical evidence. He's currently being held without bond, and apparently, further charges are possible. The investigation into the murder is ongoing, and unfortunately, no other details are available at the moment. Would you ever date someone who's been charged with murder in the past, even if the person acted in self-defense? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and while you're at it, subscribe to join the Badger fam. Number 5. Gene Birdsong. In April of 2023, a man who killed his wife in Kansas City, Missouri, was sentenced to life in prison, plus an additional 17 years due to the severity of the crime. The murder happened 5 years earlier, in November 2018. According to court documents, officers responded to Madison and Roanoke in Kansas City after receiving reports of a dead body. They located the victim, identified as Tabitha Birdsong, who appeared to have suffered fatal head injuries. Authorities also discovered an order of protection in her pocket, which had both her and the defendant's name written on it. The suspect in the crime, Gene Birdsong, Tabitha's husband, was reportedly seen with his wife on the day she was murdered, and he was seen later with blood on his pants. This, of course, was suspicious, so the police decided to search the man's room. Inside, they found several pieces of clothing covered in blood, but Gene had an explanation for this. He claimed he had been attacked by someone and that he had also been stabbed. The detectives did not buy this story, though. Instead, they charged him with armed criminal action and first-degree murder. It took several years for the case to make its way through the court system, but in April 2023, Gene was found guilty of the charges brought against him. The murder conviction carried a mandatory sentence of life behind bars, and the jury recommended an additional 17 years for the other conviction. At the time the murder took place, Gene and Tabitha had been married for almost 10 years. It's not clear what caused Gene to take his wife's life, but thankfully, he won't be able to harm anyone else from his jail cell. Number 4. LYNLEE RENICK. In June 2017, a woman from Columbia, Missouri, murdered her husband at his rare and exotic snake business near the city of New Florence. 29-year-old Ben RENICK was found with fatal gunshot wounds on his reptile farm, according to police reports. The authorities initially thought that one of the man's venomous pythons was responsible for his death, but witnesses came forward accusing Ben's widow, LYNLEE RENICK, of the crime. During LYNLEE's murder trial in 2021, prosecutors told the jury that she murdered Ben for his life insurance policy, which was worth a whopping $1 million. She apparently did this in order to save her failing spa business and to escape her failing marriage. Based on reports from the Associated Press, LYNLEE attempted to poison her husband first by serving him a narcotics-laced protein shake. However, the drink only made Ben ill, leaving him alive. When poisoning didn't work, she enlisted Michael Humphrey, her ex-boyfriend, to help him finish the job. In the end, though, it was LYNLEE that pulled the trigger and fatally shot her husband. As a result, LYNLEE was charged with armed criminal action against Ben and first-degree murder. She was also convicted of these crimes on December 9, 2021. A life sentence was sought after by the prosecutors due to the nature of the murder, but LYNLEE got off easy. On January 24, 2022, she was sentenced to just 16 years behind bars for killing her husband. Michael Humphrey, on the other hand, drew the short end of the stick and was convicted of first-degree murder, and for his involvement in the crime, he received life in prison. Number 3. Dylan Hanger. In May 2020, Brittany Gorman was stabbed to death by her estranged husband at a national park in Ozarks. A news release from the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Western District of Missouri claimed that 31-year-old Dylan Hanger met up with Brittany Gorman, his wife, at the Buck Hollow Access Area that's located within the Ozark National Scenic Riverways. And while they were there, Hanger stabbed Gorman multiple times in the chest. He then disposed of the woman's body in a remote location. On May 21, 2020, Gorman's pickup truck was discovered by park rangers. They also found items that seemed to indicate that she had been injured. However, they did not initially find her body. At first, Hanger claimed that Gorman was missing, likely due to her drug connections. But later that month, on May 30th, his conscience got the better of him and he confessed to the murder. Hanger then led authorities to the location of her body, along the Jacks Fork River. Hanger apparently planned the crime months in advance, and as a result, he was charged with tampering with physical evidence and second-degree murder. He ended up pleading guilty to the murder charge on May 10, 2022, and in February 2023, he was sentenced to 21 years and 10 months behind bars, without the possibility of parole. The tragic incident is made even worse by the fact that Hanger and Gorman shared 3 kids together, aged 5, 7, and 10 years old. And now, unfortunately, those children will grow up without a mother. Number 2. Bonnie Gooch. In April 2023, a 78-year-old woman robbed a Pleasant Hill bank in Cass County, Missouri. The suspect, Bonnie Gooch, was arrested on the day of the crime and has been in jail ever since. On April 5th, police responded to a call about a reported robbery in progress off 7 Highway at Goppert Bank. And when they arrived, they were informed that Gooch had fled the scene in her vehicle after making off with $13,000 in small bills. The elderly woman's car was later spotted by officers who pulled the suspect over. Gooch, who was found to be heavily intoxicated and reeked of booze, surrendered to the police without incident. The stolen cash was recovered from the vehicle, as well as plastic gloves, a black N95 mask, and a handwritten note. A teller at the bank was interviewed after the robbery and claimed that Gooch walked into the bank and handed her a note that said, "This is a robbery. I need 13,000 small bills, no die pack." Gooch specifically wanted the money in small bills, but the reasons for this are unclear. On the day of the crime, the suspect's son apparently called the police and claimed that his mother was off her rocker and stated that she was leaving the house to rob a bank. When she was questioned by the FBI regarding the robbery, Gooch claimed not to have any recollection of what had occurred. It was also discovered that she had been arrested 2 years prior on February 5, 2020, for another robbery she had been involved in. The previous robbery took place at Lee's Summit, and she was charged and convicted of stealing. However, Gooch's sentence was suspended, and instead she received supervised probation, which expired in late 2021. For the woman's most recent crime, it was agreed upon by all parties to reduce her bond. It was also decided that she could be released from jail under special conditions. She could be freed as long as she agreed to not consume alcohol, enter any financial institution, and stay at least 500 feet away from any Goppert Bank locations. A formal arrangement for Gooch is set for July 24, 2023, and she has waived her right to a preliminary hearing. Number 1. Joseph Moore. In April of 2023, a 31-year-old man from Hazelwood, Missouri, fatally shot his parents before turning the gun on himself. The suspect was identified as Joseph Moore by the authorities, and according to a news release from the local police department, officers responded to a residence on Woody Court after receiving reports of a disturbance with possible shots fired at around 7:40 p.m. on April 11th. They arrived to find a male suspect firing a weapon in their direction. In response, the officers returned fire, and this in turn caused Moore to shoot himself. The authorities rushed him to the hospital in serious condition, but he is expected to make a full recovery. The same cannot be said for his victims though. Inside the home, officers discovered the lifeless bodies of 70-year-old Norma Moore and her husband, Joseph's father, 63-year-old James Moore. They had been shot multiple times and both of them died from their injuries. On April 12th, the day after the shooting, arrest warrants against Joseph were obtained by the St. Louis County Prosecuting Attorney's Office. He was charged with 2 counts of armed criminal action and 2 counts of second-degree murder. Joseph is currently recovering from his injuries at the hospital, but his bond is set at $500,000. Once he is released, he will be transferred to the county's justice services. Joseph reportedly lived with his parents, but the motive for the crime is unclear. Tim Berger, the Hazelwood police captain, spoke with KTVI-TV and said that the case is a family matter. But he also said that mental health issues might have been a factor leading up to the brutal murders. No other details are available at the moment, so all we can do is hope that justice will be served. Would you rather have your home burglarized by an elderly woman who is just looking for some medication, but is crazy and points the gun at you the entire time she searches your house? Or have your home burglarized by a teen with a knife who knows how to fight? Let us know in the comments down below, and if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time on Bad Badger.